Please follow the direction, or anybody you know is in need of translation in Spanish. Please let them know to follow the directions on the right. This presentation tonight is available on YouTube as well. You can log on to the website and the link that's on the bottom left. Bienvenidos todos a esta junta esta noche. Si ocupa traducción, la junta va a estar en inglés, pero si ocupa traducción, puede seguir las instrucciones al lado derecho. Ahí le puede hacer clic en donde está el mundo, abajo de la pantalla. Y ahí puede escoger su idioma, que es español. Y por favor seleccione que se ponga en silencio el audio original. Mute original audio, le va a escoger. Otra vez se ocupa traducción. Por favor, haga clic al mundo localizado en el parte de abajo de su pantalla. Escoja su idioma en español. Y por favor, seleccione el botón que dice Mute Original Audio.
Can I make a comment? Can I
Yes,
make a comment?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't find the. I'm using a computer, but I'm trying to get it in Spanish for my wife. Okay, I already find it.
You found it?
Yeah, I already found it.
Okay, perfect.
You guys had it right now.
Okay, perfect.
All right, I just need it for my wife. Thank you.
Again, welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. This meeting that we have is available on YouTube. And also, if you need translation or if someone needs translations, please let them know to follow the directions on the right. Bienvenido a todos esta noche. Estamos aquí para una junta de información. Si ocupa traducción en español, por favor haga clic en el mundo que está localizado en el parte de abajo de su pantalla. Escoja su idioma en español y por favor seleccione el botón Mute Original Audio para poder escuchar solamente en español. Otra vez, si ocupa la traducción en español, por favor haga clic en el mundo localizado en la parte de abajo de su pantalla y escoja el idioma español y por favor seleccione el botón que dice Mute Original Audio para escuchar la junta en español. Gracias. Vamos a empezar a las 6. Si todo se puede poner el botón en el mute para poner la bocina en silencio para empezar la junta. All right, well, welcome everyone. It is 6 o'clock. We do start on time and end on time, and our start time was 6 o'clock for today. Go ahead and click to the next slide, please. Welcome to tonight's school information meeting. And so you're going to be hearing a lot of information pertinent to our upcoming school year. We definitely want to hear from you. We know that after you hear the information from the presentation, that you might have some questions. And if you do, please be sure to use the hand icon or raise your hand physically if you have your cameras on to provide your comments or ask questions. Again, I do know you're going to be hearing a lot of information. You can go back. So please make sure that you click on the hand mark to ask a question or raise your hand and we'll see you on the video. Someone will call on you. Next slide. Tonight, we also want to focus again, our district values are basics for excellence, what we feel are critical for our organization. And tonight we want to focus on results together. And so with that being said, we work collaboratively to produce exemplary outcomes for our district community. And so with that being in mind, we have you guys here today to get your opinion on some of the information that we're providing. And so again, our presentation objectives for tonight are going to be to share how the district and Cajon High School will be returning to in-person instruction for the upcoming 2021 and 2021 school year. And now I'll turn it over to our principal, Ms. Tina Bishop. You're on mute, Ms. Bishop.
That is the takeaway from this year, right? You are on mute. Okay. So good evening, everyone. We are here tonight, as Mr. Gonzalez stated, to discuss the return to school for Cajon High School. As we share our plans, I want to assure students, staff, and families that safety for all is our #1 priority. Everything we will present tonight is in compliance with our district, California Department of Public Health, and CDC guidelines. Based on a statement that was released by the California Department of Public Health in April, Cajon High School will reopen full days, 5 days a week. Currently, we plan to operate under our pre-COVID bell schedule with a start time of 7:30 a.m. and an end time of 2:35 p.m. We recognize that there may be some families who are uncomfortable with the idea of the return to school. However, we hope that we can alleviate your fears. For any families who may still be unsure, we will share information regarding the district's virtual academy this evening. Question that has continued to come up is the question of vaccinations. And so we know that vaccination, the decision to get a vaccination is a personal one. And because of this, at this time, there is no legal requirement for students or school staff members to be vaccinated. The school district will not ask individuals for this information upon return to school. There will be protocols put in place and procedures put in place to maintain the safety of our students, but at this moment, and our staff, students and our staff, but at this moment, vaccinations are not required to return to school. So tonight you're going to hear from multiple staff members, that's admin, as well as some of our teacher leaders who have helped us develop the plans for our return to school. And the plans will be with the purpose of maintaining the physical health of our students and staff at Cajon High School. As stated before, all plans are in compliance with district and California Department of Public Health, as well as the CDC guidelines. Next slide. Mr. Jancy, if you can please share the screening and monitoring processes to our families.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Frank Jancy, Vice Principal.
1 second, Frank. If we can be sure to make sure our buttons are on mute so that we can hear the presentation. Again, if all our listeners can make sure that we're on mute. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So again, as Ms. Bishop alluded to earlier, the health and safety of everyone is the utmost importance. So therein, we do have some screening and monitoring processes in place. One of the biggest things that we would implore upon you is if there's some COVID symptoms that you may have or in the family, please stay home. With that being said, there will be some daily screening and temperature checking, both for students, staff, and all visitors to the campus. With that being said, we do know that there's some new guidelines out, things that are different from what they were at the beginning of when this onset happened. For example, surface areas. We talk about infectious prevention on surface areas. However, we do know that those are very minimal cases or minimal causes and a low risk of transmission for surfaces. We also know that social distancing helps, and there's been a different variety of the actual distance of what that will be, but we will also implore those sort of rules. Also, the amount of time people are in close proximity, we plan to minimize that. So with all of those in that number 3 icon, the infection prevention, another important part is to be cleanly, have cleanliness, wash hands, we have sanitation, we have sanitizers around, we have lots of soap. So again, wash our hands, social distance, and then all those things will help with infection prevention measures. Next slide, please. Again, students with symptoms at school, we will have an isolation that area, and I'll get into that in the next slide. And they will be supervised until pickup. The positive students should quarantine at home, and then students can return to school. There is a process in place for this after when recovered 7 days after the onset of symptoms. All right.
Mr. Jaffe, before moving forward, can you please make sure to address face masks and the requirement?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
As going back to those infectious prevention, there is a mandatory face mask for all staff and students, visitors, everyone on the campus. So that again goes to what we're speaking about on safety measures that prevent and create healthy conditions. Okay. So on the SBCUSD safety measures, pre-arrival self-evaluation and pre-entry temperature face screenings will be occurring. Mandatory face coverings, as Ms. Bishop just mentioned right now. Minimizing large groups or mixing of groups, we're gonna do that as much as possible. Isolation for symptomatic individuals while we're investigating that. We'll have a process, and again, we'll go into that. Avoiding sharing of materials across groups. Allow for ventilation. You'll see the HEPA filters and air scrubbers that we have installed throughout the campus. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, there's availability of use of hand sanitizer and hand washing throughout the campus. Along with those measures, we do have lots of supplies. There are supplies for students, for staff, for face masks. So if people want to bring their own face masks that are compliant, that's good. But we also have an ample supply of PPEs, if you will, for our staff and students. Daily requirements, again, please parents check at home for symptoms. Students must wear the mask, and then students, we need them to wear an ID around their neck. We're going to have lanyards that we're going to provide. We're also going to have pictures that we will providing and ask that students come out and take their pictures for the ID during the summer. And our plans are right now for the month of July for that to happen. So when the first day of school happens, we would like everyone wearing their IDs so we can identify everyone. Next slide. Our transportation overview. For those who are going to be doing busing, busing is going to be an important aspect of this. So again, the COVID home screening before boarding, ask for that on the safety precaution. Face coverings for all students is a must. There is going to be open windows on the bus for ventilation. Each bus will be sanitized after each group of riders. And also the buses will have a minimum capacity that is at best possible. All right. Next slide, please. All right. So at this time, I'd like Mr. Smith to go ahead and do the arrival locations map, and we'll speak to this map. So this is what your day is going to look like at Cajon High School. As students arrive, I'm going to go over this slide and this map. And then we're going to talk about lunches, and then we'll talk about dismissal. All right. So displayed before you is a map. If you look at the map, you're looking at a makeup of Cajon High School facing north. So if you are facing the school from Hill Drive, the front of the school, if you will, with the mountains as a background, that is north. On Mountain Avenue, that is east, and south is Hill, and west is over there by the stadium. So for reference. So all students will be entering to the campus and go through a screening process. Those 4 screening areas are the library, if you could, the East Gym, the West Gym, and the cafeteria. Okay. So any late arrival, so all the arrivals will be entering into those areas, and late arrivals will go through the library. Oops. Got a block. Okay, excellent. All right, so students entering from North Park will be expected to report to the West Gym. And in there will be the temperature screening that we alluded to earlier. From Mountain, they will enter the school and go into the East Gym. We're going to ask something of parents. We've got lots of students that are going to be walking and going through the parking lots. So at this time, we're asking that there is no drop-offs inside of the school in the parking lot. And this is a safety concern as many students will be funneling through the parking lots and into those areas that were listed. The front of Hill Drive, that's for buses and drops in the front there. Those students will enter, go around the admin building and into the library again for temperature screening. And then west parking lot, they will be coming in from the bus in there, and parents dropped off from that west side, and people walking in all the way to in between the B and the cafeteria where the bike rack is, and into the cafeteria north. So those are those areas. Now, if any student comes up with some symptoms or anything, they will be escorted to an isolation room that is located in the yellow and is being circled on the screen right now. That is a self-contained isolation room with a COVID liaison that will be doing the screening. And we'll also get into the details of that in a bit. Okay, next slide, please. Our breakfast and lunch procedures. So at this time, there will be multiple grab and go breakfast and lunch distribution stations. So what I mean by grab and go, these will be prepackaged lunch that are quickly distributed. This is going to be for efficiency and minimizing the amount of students that are in proximity to each other. And then again, they will have a good nutritious lunch that's quick. We will continue with our 2 lunches that we have at Cajon High School. Cafeteria workers will tally daily food distributions for students on a separate sheet. So students will not be required to input their ID number into the pad at this time, okay? So it's a quick process. We also plan to allow seniors, with parent permission, of course, the option for off-campus lunch. Seniors will be expected to follow a check-in process when they return to the site, okay? This is again to minimize the amount of students, the number of students, if you will, on the campus, okay? We will continue to provide also community lunch distribution on Wednesdays in the west parking lot from 9 to 11. And this will be for our community members with kids that are gonna be at home during the school day, okay? Dismissal procedures. All right, so teachers are going to release students starting with the, let me get this here. Starting with the closest class to the exit point. And that would be inside the classrooms. And you're gonna see a example of passing periods earlier. So teachers will remind students of social distancing recommendations of the CDPH, okay? Also, students will leave campus based on the location of their last class of the day. We understand that there is some special circumstances. For example, our up there in the north, in the gym, students from PE aren't obviously all going to go to North Park. They're going to come out and have to go west.
They can record anything on his cell phone.
Gotta.
No.
Nope. Okay, I just heard some talking. All right, and then also that applies to our sports students. How most of our sports students do leave early for their away games. However, some may need to go to the east lot to get their cars, so they will have designated paths to leave the campus. Okay. All right. At this time, we're going to go into the period exchanges and the next slide for our next presenter, and I believe that's Mr. Pham.
Good evening, students, staff, family, community members. My name is Austin Piazza, and Mr. Pham and I will be covering transitions between periods for students. So in front of you, you'll see a map of Cajon High School. Like Mr. Jancy said, the north side of the campus, or the north side of the map, is North Park Boulevard. The east side of our campus houses the student parking lot and Mountain Avenue. The west side of the campus has the staff parking lot as well as our football stadium. And the south side of the school being Hill Drive and the school's main entrance. So as a team, we were tasked with addressing current CDC guidelines to support safe transitions between classes. Our main focus became the B and the C buildings because they are made up of inside hallways. Mr. Pham?
Guideline states that all indoor hallways need to be one directional. This is currently a non-negotiable that we need to abide by. To ensure that we have students moving in one direction, we are exploring staggered release options. Since there are more students in the C building, the passing periods may start with the C wing teachers releasing their students first.
For the C building, there are 3 proposed entrances marked with the green dots on your screen. The northwest, southwest, and northeast side of the building. There will be 2 exits at the north and southeast points of the building that are marked by the red dots on the screen. The idea is that students who are coming from a class in the E and F wing enter through the northeast door. Students that are coming from PE, the G wing, and the B building will enter through the entrances on the west side.
Sorry.
It's okay. While in the building, directional reminders will be placed as well as staff being at their doors to help facilitate the paths of travel that you see on your screen.
For the B building, there are 3 exit points. Students will make their way to the fastest exit points from their class. Exit points marked with the red dots on the map are the north, southeast, and southwest points of the building. Students will enter the B building through the 2 green entry points, one being the entry point closest to the library, as well as the northwest side by rooms B25 and B14. The northwest entrance will be used primarily for students coming from the PE and G wing areas.
And we realize the logistics of this plan aren't perfect, and it may cause inconveniences in regards to paths of travel for students. However, like we said, we were tasked with coming up with a plan that uses our current CDC guidelines, which will help ensure student safety. So that's it for transitions.
Good evening. This is Mr. Smith, one of the vice principals, and I'm going to discuss with you the classroom setups and the restrooms in our common areas. So we've taken a lot of safeguards this year to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our classes. We have placed hand sanitizer stations at the entrance and exit of each classroom, which I will show you in a picture. Each room has an air circulation with hospital grade HEPA filtration that exceeds the standards for the square footage of the room. The classes are set up to house all students and create the maximum space for students to be socially distanced with a maximum capacity of 36, with the exception of PE, which will be discussed later. Teachers are required to be at a safe distance from our students, and we're using our custodial staff to sanitize the rooms daily after school. However, if teachers are willing, we are willing to provide the germicide materials and spray bottles so that they can do some disinfecting in between classes. This is a typical classroom layout. As you can see, the desks are spread out. In the back of the room here, you'll see the HEPA filtration system. And then by this fire extinguisher, you'll see our sanitizing station. In our science labs, we have a similar situation with our HEPA filtration near the door there, along with the sanitizer station. And as you can see by the tables and chairs, we spread out the students as much as possible. As far as classroom materials go, we're going to still need the students to use their Chromebooks to bring them to and from school. And a very important point, make sure your students charge their Chromebooks at night so that they're fully charged. They should last about 8 hours on full charges. And it's important that they charge them so they don't run out of battery during the day. Should they run out of battery, we can address that by providing a charging station or allowing them to, as it says in the second bullet, to exchange their Chromebook if needed. And if any students have a Chromebook that's not working well, we would recommend that they exchange that Chromebook at the beginning of the year so they have a more up-to-date Chromebook. They'll be using these Chromebooks to take notes, do assignments, and submit their work as the teachers assign it. Teachers will also be allowed to give assignments in other means and methods. It totally depends upon what the teacher's willing to do. Students will also have access to textbooks digitally, or if they want, they can have a paper copy that they can take to their homes. In addition, we're going to make sure we have paper copies of the text available to use in class. And then the science teachers will have their science lab equipment cleaned after use with simple soap and water to ensure that they're as safe as possible. The music classes will have social distancing while playing or singing. The singers, percussionists, string students will sing and play with standard cloth mask. As you see in the picture, we also have our woodwind or brass students who play with a special mask for those instruments that will allow more airflow through the mask, but also the instruments themselves will have covers on them to prevent the release of any aerosol in the environment, so that we minimize the chance for students to catch any airborne viruses. As far as the restrooms go and hand washing procedures, we have multiple restrooms that will be available all day. And during class time, the use of restrooms will be regulated by our new electronic hall pass system we're purchasing. And what this system does, it helps track students for contact tracing. So we'll know which students were out and about at what times. Should somebody come down with the symptoms of COVID, we could let other students know if they happen to be in contact with them. And also will help reduce the restroom lines, because the hall pass system will allow us to restrict the number of students using a given restroom at a given time. And if students attempt to use it and it's full, they will be directed to use another restroom on campus. Of course, they will be encouraged to wash their hands often, not only when using the restroom, but at all times during the day. And we also have a portable hand washing stations that will be available in our main student traffic area, which is the quad. We also have, as I mentioned earlier, the sanitizing stations in each classroom. And then the common areas where students will be able to be, as was stated, we're looking at situations that are longer than 15 minutes. So at lunchtime, at breakfast time, when we have students in these areas for 15 minutes or longer, we're going to try and minimize them being in contact with one another. We're going to open up some space that we normally don't have students during the day to ensure that they have plenty of room to spread out. And we're going to ask them to socially distance as per the guidelines. And lastly, we have picnic tables set up in our quad and in the area between the library and the administration building. And we will allow one student per side to sit, which is 4 students per picnic table. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gonzalez so he can talk to you about the PE classes and locker room procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And again, if you do have any questions, because you are getting a lot of information, please make sure you write them down. And at the end of this session, we'll have a Q&A session for you to ask those questions. So we know that PE tends to be a larger classroom or larger class. So we have about 6 teachers out there at the same time with about 50 students in each class. And so the procedure that we put in place is to limit the number of students in the locker room to about 50 students at a time, 50 for the female students, and 50 male students in their locker room. Once in the locker room, the students are going to have 6 minutes to change into their appropriate attire. And upon clearing the locker room of the 50 students, the next group of 50 can come in to change. Go ahead and click. To give you a better idea, each PE teacher will separate the students to follow the social distancing guidelines. And so you might see 5 students in one row for one teacher and 5 students in another row. And so no more than about 15 students per aisle. As you can see there as well, we do have our HEPA filters that are located in each locker room to again clean the air and make sure it's properly filtered. So as Mr. Jancy referred to earlier, symptomatic individuals, we do have a procedures because we know that sometimes kids, they'll get sick during the day. And so if a student does feel sick, the student is to notify the teacher that they're not feeling well and they have something, they're coughing, they have maybe a fever. And so the teacher will then give that student an electronic hall pass to the isolation room or to the isolation area. Students entering the isolation area at that time will be screened by a COVID liaison and with parent permission, be given a rapid COVID test. Once that occurs and the student say goes through the protocol with the COVID liaison, we'll notify the parent and the student will go home until they are symptom free. Students who are clear to return to class will receive a pass saying that they are clear and that they can participate back in their regular school day. Okay, perfect. And now I'll turn it over to Ms. Sosa, again, just to talk about what the procedure is if your student is being picked up.
Good evening. Our procedures for visitors is if, just to extend on what Mr. Gonzalez was sharing, is if a student has been shown that they have COVID symptoms, the parent is to wait in the vehicle and a staff member will escort the student to them. We also have a check-in survey that everyone will need to complete. So all visitors will need to come through the front office, whether they're a parent or they're visiting for a different type of meeting. So Mr. Smith is going to show you some of the questions. So the first part of the survey are health screening questions. So if all responses are to no, this is what you will see.
You're clicking on the back button, Mr. Smith, so it's going back.
Go to next.
You got to click, there you go.
So it's about 5 questions that deal with COVID-like symptoms. And if all the responses are no, it will proceed to send you to respond to a questionnaire on the reason for your visit. So your last name, first name, and then there's a series of options. So if you're here for a parent-teacher conference, you're here to pick up a student at the health office, you're here for a training. So again, it encompasses parents as well as any type of visitor. And that information will go to our front office. So they will anticipate who is here and it'll expedite the process. Okay. We will have signage at the front door window. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, we'll have signage at the front window for information to complete the screening service. As you can see, it may take some time, so please plan accordingly. So we suggest 10 to 15 minutes to arrive early to ensure that you have enough time to check in and you're not waiting in a long line. Next slide, Mr. Smith. Again, as I mentioned, all visitors must come in the front as usual, and there will be markers for social distancing. We will have 1 to 2 staff members at the front greeting everyone to help assist and navigate the entry, fill out the survey, so on and so forth. The front office door will be locked to secure the flow of traffic, and visitors will continue to come into the front office to be cleared through the Raptor system, just as before. Next slide. Here's just a picture of the process that we have. Oh, sorry, Mr. Smith. Just so you can see that we've taken, our offices are set up to ensure social distancing, and we have plexiglass to ensure everyone's safety. Next slide. Meetings, parents will have the option to request a virtual or an in-person meeting for parent-teacher conferences, IEPs, and 504s based on their preference. In-person meetings, but please keep in mind that in-person meetings may include virtual participants in order to accommodate for the capacity of the room. Parents must come in through the front office and complete the check-in survey prior to attending any meeting. And next, I'll pass it over to Mr. Gonzalez to go over supports for our special need population.
Thank you, Ms. Sosa. So if your student is in our special needs program, these are some questions that you may have. And so we want to make sure that students with special needs in the mild to severe program, we're going to give them a designated check-in area, because we know that sometimes they come with a wheelchair, or they're in crutches, or they have some kind of disability that prevents them from walking far. So they have a designated area for check-in near their classroom. Our school and our teachers will definitely establish and promote, again, a culture of hand hygiene, just making sure that the kids are washing hands during passing break, that they're limiting the equipment that they're sharing. Again, we want to limit the amount of exposure to their touching, even though that surface attracting the virus through surface is limited. Students with special needs will not be excluded from educational environments if their disability prevents them from wearing a face covering. We will work with each student's family. If necessary, we can provide them face shields and whatever is necessary to make sure that they're safe and the students around them are safe. For students who have in-person speech or in RSP programs, they will still be provided to students. And so we will be ensuring that we have the appropriate face shields and or masks / PPE and cleaning in between sessions to again limit the amount of contact that we have with the virus as well. Click on that. If your student has one-on-one services, we will continue to provide it based on the individualized determination to maintain their mental and physical health and safety for the purpose of accessing learning. Again, as Ms. Sosa indicated before, parents will continue to have an option for holding their IEP meetings via Google or a Zoom session. And lastly, based on the recommendation from the California Department of Public Health our SPED class sizes will not change from a typical academic year. So they will maintain the same as they already have a low class size. All right, Ms. Sosa, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. So we wanted to share what we're doing, or we're continuing to do, to address the social emotional health of our students. And so we'll be sharing some of the things that we already have in place, and we will continue to pull on through into the next school year. Next slide, Mr. Smith. And so we just want to share that we do have district-wide support as well as on-site. So we do have supports that our district Swiss department is providing lessons to support our counselors and support our teachers. So there is that partnership with the district. We also provide small group support sessions for different types of emotional support. And then we also have mental health therapy through our heart system and community partners through our district. So I just want to share that we do have supports on site as well as through the district for our students. Next slide, please. We want to share that if a student were to need one-on-one support with their counselor, they can make an appointment. So we wanted to share with you where you can find that information on our website. We actually have a button for our Cajon counseling website. So we'll show you that once you get there from our Cajon website, where you'd be able to find, if a student does not know who their counselor is, or the parent doesn't know who the counselor is, we can show you where to find that information. So here we have all of our counselors with their names and then their alphabetical breakdown of the students. They also all have a Google phone number that you can contact them directly, or you can also schedule an appointment with them. And here is the link to schedule an appointment, via phone or Google Meet. So our counselors do a phenomenal job of addressing the needs of our students. So wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of where to find that information. Wanted to share some wellness supports that we have in place and we will continue to carry on into next year. So we currently have a 9th grade support group, acronym PRIDE. So that is our school-wide expectations of personal responsibility, respect, integrity, determination, and engagement. So it's a cycle of 5 weeks that are driven by our counselors. They pair up and they give lessons that pertain to each of those characteristics to support our 9th graders, especially when they're transitioning into high school. We also have a Wellness Wednesday group that is open to all students. They can we take part in different activities, different breakout rooms where they can, just do a, relaxation room. They can, share about their emotional struggles. And it's also a partnership with our psychology pathway. So we have our psychology teacher and interns that support our counselors who lead this group. We also have a wellness team that is a group comprised by different staff members on campus that is dedicated to focus on tier 2 supports for our students. And we also provide the opportunity for teachers to refer students to a wellness team for additional support. So sometimes, again, our teachers are more aware of what is going on with the student, and then they can communicate with our wellness team so that we can address it as needed. Next slide, please. And lastly, I want to share that if the supports that we provide on campus are not enough and we need to move on to tier 3 supports, we want to make sure again that we share that our district does have a heart team that is available to support, and then also our community-based partners such as Victor Community, IHP, and Uplift Family Services. So we want to ensure that our students are supported as a whole, academically, as well as social and emotionally, to make sure that they, especially now coming back on campus, that they are transitioning in a very positive and healthy manner. Next slide. Next, I will pass it over to Ms. Bishop to share about our virtual academy.
It's a lot of information. I know there's a lot to digest. However, I hope that the families understand that we really wanted to walk you through the day and provide you with information that would help you feel comfortable with returning, allowing your student to return to school. We know we've missed them, but we still understand that it's safety first, and that safety could either be their social emotional well-being as well as just their physical well-being. So we respect any decisions that is made. If the information that we've shared this evening has not made families comfortable with returning their students to Cajon High School, we do want to make sure we take a moment to share the options that are being provided by our district. There are currently 3 options. However, high school students have the opportunity to elect 2 of those options. So as you see before you on the screen, there's a K-12 online virtual learning option. And with that, there will be we'll be using a digital curriculum. I believe we're using Edmentum. And there will be daily instructional support provided to students, office hours for teachers and so forth. It's also meeting our A through G requirements for high schools for college admissions. The other option is an independent studies option where we're using the adopted text and digital curriculum. It is more independent. So if we have those independent learners out there, there will be teacher support, but the bulk of the learning falls on the falls on the student. Those, so for those who are, as I stated, independent learners. Now I have to make sure that families understand, if you elect to go with the virtual option, your student is no longer a student of Cajon High School. They will be enrolled in the virtual academy. There was legislation that allowed for schools to offer online learning. However, that legislation does expire June 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And with that, comprehensive high schools are no longer able to provide a virtual option as part of their program, which is why a student who opts into the virtual academy will be transferring from Cajon High School to the virtual academy. There are agreements that are being made in regards to students who would still like to participate in our extracurricular activities, such as our sports, our clubs. And also we know that there are some students that would like to, if they're seniors, would like to graduate from Cajon High School, even though they are members or students of the virtual academy. We're working out the details on whether or not that is something that can occur. More information will come with that. However, once again, I need to make sure that it is understood that any families that are electing to enroll their students into the virtual academy, those students are no longer considered Cajon High School students. I also understand that there might be questions about programs that are offered by the virtual academy. I know from what I'm understanding, the information that I've received, students will be allowed to participate in programs based on the availability of staff working with the virtual academy that can provide those programs. So if your student is enrolled in IB, AVID, the dual immersion, well, if they're coming to Cajon, it wouldn't be dual immersion, but I think you get the idea. But those specialized programs, there's no guarantee that the virtual academy will be able to provide those programs through their program. Okay. I'm sure there's some questions out there about that, and we'll be more than happy to answer questions about what we've shared regarding the return to school for Cajon High School, as well as if we have questions in regards to the virtual academy, we'll make an attempt to answer those questions. Before you advance, Mr. Smith, can you go back real quick? If you look at the bottom of this slide, there is a number available if you would like more detailed information regarding the virtual academy. Okay. So if you could take a screenshot, picture, or whatnot, there's also information on our district website that would help direct you to the appropriate person. Okay. Okay. Before we go into questions, to the question and answer portion, Mr. Gonzalez, do you want to speak a little on the contact tracing? You're on mute, sir.
Thank you. And so just to kind of talk about when students have symptoms, if they do end up testing positive, and we're notified by the liaison, the district has designed.
I want to come to the front and get the sodas. I bought everybody some sodas. You got a lot of stuff to get already?
1 second.
We'll get one.
So as I indicated, if a student does test positive for COVID-19, the district has designed procedures for conducting their contact tracing. And at that point, we would initiate those procedures and notify parents if there's anyone who does test positive for COVID-19 to let you know that we are conducting contact tracing, and we want to make sure that we're keeping these schools safe. And so a positive test would initiate those procedures from the district, and we're going to try our best to limit the amount of exposure that we can. All right, at this point, then go ahead, Mr. Smith. You want to turn it over to the next slide. If you do have questions at this time, we're going to go one by one. As indicated earlier, you can raise your hand physically, or you can use the little hand button. One of our associates here will call on you or ask your question. You can also scan the QR code that's on the screen and write your question there, and we can address those as well. If you wish to continue being a part of the Q&A session, please feel free. If not, you're more than open to dismiss yourself, but we're going to go ahead and start with our Q&A session. Ms. Finley and Ms. Sosa, if you guys want to start with that, let's go ahead and begin.
Okay, do we want to start with our raised hands?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm just gonna look at, I'm sorry, I don't know who went first. So we'll go with Rahaja Samayoa.
Ms. Samayoa, if you want to unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so my question is, like, if the student does test positive, let's say that all of our kids are in the class, does that mean our child will be affected by the student? And what are the precautions for that? So let's say it's a Monday and then the kid finds out Friday that they're positive and they've been around our kid all week, then what happens?
Like I said, that's definitely a good question to ask at this time. If that happens, we would follow the contact tracing procedures that are established by the district. And at that point, we would obviously inform the parents of the positive test and let them know that we are conducting the contact tracing to see if we can figure out if anybody else has been infected.
Okay, and then as far as the staying at home, so Cajon is no longer, but you will not be providing virtual school at all? Is that what that was saying? From what the miss was saying earlier, that if you do virtual studies at home, that you'll be into a different program and you just won't be a part of Cajon at all? Is that what's happening?
That's correct. If you do decide, well, as of June 30th, the comprehensive high schools won't provide the virtual setting. It would be as if your child was enrolled at a different school. And so right now we're still working out the details as far as if a student wants to participate in sports or extracurriculars.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next
Next
question.
we have Jeff Loomer. Go ahead and unmute.
Hi, yes, thank you. So I guess my question kind of goes a little bit with what was just asked was, so if they test positive, they take the test there, they're out 7 days. So how does the tardies or the absences happen throughout the year if this happens to be a common occurrence where they're missing an exceeding amount of days? Since they can't do virtual, how's that go with missing too many days of school in the school year?
So, Mr. Loomer, we've always had a policy in place for students who were out sick, and we would still utilize those procedures. So, teachers would be asked to provide homework, as well as, provide any other instructions that's needed to help the student make up the work. We did have some protocols put in place for COVID and COVID-related absences. And in fact, if Ms. Sosa could explain a little of what our protocols were for students who had COVID-related absences this year, we will continue to use those for next year.
So we have a protocol of, say, if it was a teacher that, a student shared that they have COVID, the teacher would notify our attendants and notify administration. But with our new protocols, it would flow a little bit different. But we do have protocols in place that we had all year long, where a student is allowed a certain amount of days against what is reasonable within a time frame for the students to, be able to get the work off of Google Classroom, be able to have allotted time to submit work after they return. So those protocols would still be in place that we've had all school year.
Okay, great. One more question, if I may.
Yes.
So I know with the new process of checking in now, it's a lot of kids to check in. So how is like the tardy process and everything working for those kids, either busing or walking are those now being exempt, or what if they're now late due to backed up lines or not being able to get checked in before class starts?
So I will say this, that our staff has been notified of the check-in process. And we know that with the number of students that attend Cajon High School, that there potentially could be a delay in students making it to their classrooms. So as a staff, we are currently working on solutions so that students are not penalized for a much needed process, as well as just any allowances that might come with a student being tardy to class because the check-in was extended. We have also explored the option of allowing a little, like a cushion time before the actual start of instruction to also accommodate any delays in the check-in process. But we're very mindful that it can get a little congested first thing because of the number of students that we have, but we are definitely going to take that into consideration.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, if your question is answered, feel free to remove the hand signal icon from the screen. Go ahead, next question, Ms. Sosa.
Next, we have Javier Cueto.
Mr. Cueto, go ahead and unmute your mic and ask your question. Mr. Cueto, last call to unmute your mic before we move on to the next question.
Okay, next we have...
Hello?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, like when they park us, like they drop us off, do they have to park for them to drop us off, or they could just drop us off in the entrance?
Mr. Jancy, if you want to address that question.
Yes, if I hear you correct, your question, no, your service is not necessary to drop you off, so they can drop you off wherever they like. We just ask that they don't drop you off inside the parking lots.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Sosa.
Next, we have Amanda Carreno.
So my son is coming from Palm Avenue on the northern side. So will he get bused out that way? Because I know my oldest went there as well and he was getting bused. Are they getting bused now?
Mr. Jancy.
I am. The busing that existed prior to is still existing. However, let me, we'll put into the chat the transportation number if you want to get more information from them. Okay.
Okay.
Next question, Ms. Sosa.
Oh, no, I'm not done yet.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So whenever I call the transportation, are they gonna let me know if he's applied? Will he get a letter or will he get a card?
So typically the way that works is they do have a bus pass that they use and they verify that the student qualifies for the busing from where they're being bused from.
Okay, so when he gets dropped off by the bus, because I know the bus isn't always on time when they drop them off at school. So how will that work for him if he gets bussed out and he's late already, and then you guys still have to scan him in?
So most of our, it's very rare that a bus is late. They're usually late because some sort of incident may have occurred, a breakdown, something to that effect. So there's a twofold question. If the bus is late, past 8:30, we do have a process where all late students will be checking in at the library.
Okay. And then where would that number be again?
It's in the chat right now. It's 909-388-6125.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any more questions, Ms. Carreno?
Yes. So if I give them a call tomorrow, are they able to let me know, or does it have to be closer to school time?
I'm not sure exactly. They're going to be able to they should be able to provide information as to whether the busing is going to happen, whether you get your card or not, I'm not sure about.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have Ms. Jennifer Mcfade.
Sorry about that. I was just wondering, what if your child is already vaccinated? They still have to wear a mask and he's going to be 18.
Yes, so I'll take it from you. Currently, the guidelines we have received from our district is that all students, unless they show an exemption, they will have to wear a face mask or covering.
Okay, because yeah, he asked me, he goes, I got vaccinated. What? All right, I'll let him know that then.
Any additional question, Ms. McFate?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Next question, Ms. Sosa.
Next, we have Ms. Lisette Toupe or Toupe.
Yeah, it's Toupe, but thank you. I guess my first question is, if our students want to get there early and not have to deal with too many of the lines, how early will the campus be opened to drop them off?
At this time, the plan is to open up the campus at 7 o'clock, with the exception there is some 0 period classes that will be admitted. However, the main part of the campus will be open at 7.
Okay, and then my second question is, both of my students, I have a freshman and a sophomore, but of course my sophomore has never stepped foot on campus. Will there be like an orientation? All those maps you were showing and things you were showing, I mean, they might make sense to one person, but I know I didn't retain any of that information, and I wasn't taking notes. So will that, I guess it's a twofold question. Will that information come to us in like written format, and will the students be able to have an orientation to kind of walk the camp, the grounds, and know where exactly things are so that they're not so lost on the first day?
To answer your question, yes, to both questions. Not only will we provide information in writing, but we are also looking at having a student orientation for both our incoming freshmen as well as our soon-to-be sophomores, because we recognize that they have not had the opportunity to engage on campus. In addition, we have taken the time to record this meeting so that anyone who would like to revisit the information that we've provided can do so. It will be on our school's YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Julian Centeno.
Go ahead, Julian, unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, so I was wondering, for lunch, are we all, as like all the students gonna be separated into groups, like where they can eat, or like how is lunch gonna work?
So again, basically, we're going to ask that no students group together. As alluded to earlier, we will have 4 at a table that will be allowed. There's 2 lunches that are going to be permitted, and with social distancing. And we're also going to be allowing, we're going to create a plan for seniors to be able to leave for lunch and be able to come back with a systematic check-in when they return.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Rosemary Hagan.
Go ahead, Miss Rosemary.
Hi, it's Hyen. So my question is to you guys. So my son has an IEP, and if he decides to do the virtual classes, how is that going to go when he has stipulations in the IEP? Because he's doing so much better doing virtual reality learning than he is when he was on campus.
As I shared, there will, the student will receive all of the supports that are needed through the virtual academy. And don't quote me on this, but I would assume that there is going to be a review of his IEP, and any amendments that are needed to be made. There will be an IEP meeting called so that you can make those accommodations to help the student be successful through the virtual academy.
Okay, so will it be like the 5 days a week that he will be in the virtual reality classes like he is now? Or is it going to be like 3 days? Because he's going right now, of course, the 5 days, and he's like, he's acing everything right now. And I noticed that he likes it better, and he's doing so much better, especially with the communication that he has with his teachers right now. He's comfortable with them, and he gets along very well with his classmates when they're, you know, doing the virtual reality. So how's that? Is it still gonna be the 5 days, or do you even know if it's gonna be 3 days, 4 days, and how many hours per day?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that question. So the best way for you to get the answers to that question would be to contact the young lady who is overseeing the virtual academy. And we had shared that information on the slide, but what we can do now is provide you with that information in the chat so that you can give them a call. In addition, you can go on the district website, and there will be a link for the virtual academy so that you can get more information as well.
Yeah, because I came in a little late because I, you know, had to coming home from work, so I wasn't on there right away, so I didn't get that number. So yeah, if you can put it in the box there for me, I'd appreciate it.
Perfect, no problem. We'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Next, we have Leila Avant.
Hello, everyone. My question is two-part. My question comes from my concern of cross-contamination. Number one, I'm wondering if you guys said that if the parents approve on the students being swabbed, if they approve, then they'll be swabbed for the random testing. So I'm wondering, if we do not approve of that, then where do you go after that? And well, you can go ahead and answer that question, because my next part is still basically within the same question.
Any student any student who was sent to the isolation area, if a parent does not provide permission for a rapid COVID test to be given, but that student is exhibiting symptoms, we would ask that the parent pick their child up to either get the student tested or just to quarantine until we know that it's safe for that student to return.
Okay, so basically if the parent doesn't approve of the rapid random swabbing, then they are sent to an isolation area?
So the isolation area, the student will be sent to the isolation area in order for them to be either for the parent, well, parent will be notified either way, right? But for the COVID test or waiting for that parent to pick them up. What will trigger calling a parent would be that the student is feeling ill and stating that they're exhibiting or they're exhibiting signs of COVID. So the student will already be in the isolation area due to like they self-referred themselves there.
Oh, so is it just basically a place where they just wait and they don't go to class?
So the moment the student gets there, they will go through the screening process and the parent will be notified. And at that point, the liaison will ask the parent if they're comfortable with a COVID test being administered. And if the parent is not, then the liaison would ask that the parent or a family member that's been authorized by the parent to pick the student up. The student will not be permitted to go back to the class until we have gone through that process.
Okay, well, I probably should have gave you my concern. My concern is there is reports of cross-contamination with the testing of the swab. So I don't believe that I heard you guys explain the type of techniques you guys use as far as how you're going to swab these kids. Because to be honest with you, I'll be very comfortable with the swabbing if my student, my child, is given a, say for example, you guys are using a Q-tip swab. If it's in an unopened package, sterile practices, I don't know if you guys are practicing sterile practices. I don't want my child to become contaminated through those cross contaminations. So that was really my main concern on, basically how you guys are going to go about that. What kind of practices are you
your
using
child
to
at home.
I'm sorry.
That's understandable. That is definitely understandable. What I can tell you is that the COVID liaison is a trained professional. This will not be a teacher or an administrator that's going through the process. It will be someone who has been trained in the protocols for COVID related, issues. And so I unfortunately can't give you the exact protocols because that wasn't my training, but I do know that the person who is administering it and will be have oversight over our isolation area is a trained professional that will be following all of those protocols to prevent any cross contamination. But what I can do is, as we get more information, reach out to you and provide you with that information so that you, should it be needed, you would have that information.
Okay, yeah, because I'm very concerned because there was professionals who actually cross-contaminated people. So yeah, it's very necessary for my children, for me and my children to know what type of techniques you guys are going to use. So yeah, wherever you can give me that information and what company you guys are going, what third party you guys are going to use, I would definitely like to know.
Absolutely. If you don't mind putting if you can do it, can you do a direct message to me, Tina Bishop? I'll take your information down and we'll get in contact with you.
I don't know how to do that, but I can type in the chat my information.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you to do, but just doing it directly to myself.
Oh, I see.
So that your personal information isn't out there for.
Oh, I see exactly how you're talking about. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. Thank you so much.
You're
and that
welcome.
was my question. Thank you so much,
You're
everyone.
welcome.
And before we transition to the next question, we do apologize. It is an open forum, so sometimes someone may slip in and make inappropriate comments. We will exit that individual as quickly as we can. Thank you for your patience. Ms. Sosa, next question.
Next we have Carla Ruiz.
Hi. Yes, my question is, say my child or somebody gets sick and then, they can't go to school for whatever reason, right? Until they start feeling better or get negative tests or whatever it is your guys' plan is. So they're not going to be able to do homework or chime in during class virtually anymore or anything like that?
They are more than welcome to complete assignments. Unfortunately, they will not be able to join the class virtually. As stated before, we will no longer have that option for live instruction to be given and virtually.
Okay, so my daughter came home just kind of saying, oh, it's going to be 3 options, one virtually, one all at school 100%, and one half and half. Is that incorrect?
That is incorrect. The only option that Cajon High School is offering is all in person. Families do have that second option of virtual. However, that would be with the virtual academy.
Right. Okay. Do you have a question? I guess that was it. That pretty much answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Luis. Next question, Ms. Sosa.
Next we have Gloria Rodas.
Ms. Rodas, if you can unmute.
Gloria Rodas, are you there?
Yes. My question was just, my girls are walkers, and on a hot day, I know they're going to be taking their temperature in the morning. What if it's hot outside and it triggers the scanner to say that they have a fever?
That's a great question. It's one of the reasons why we have designed our intake areas to be indoors. The plan is as they enter into those doors, it will give them an opportunity to cool down. So the East-West gym the library and the cafeteria. So if there's a chance that they are hot, which periodically has happened, it's happened to me several times, there will be a retake of that temperature just to make sure. So yes. Any other questions with that?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Next, we have Diana Shemaine.
Yeah, hi. My question is about summer school. So these new guidelines, are they going to be in effect for summer school or just whenever they start the next school year?
So I can take that question. We are using our guidelines for summer school. However, we are minimizing the amount of time that students are on campus. Our credit recovery summer school this year will remain virtual. And the only students who will be on campus will be those students who need the additional support. So we will have, for those students who are on an IEP, we will have RSP teachers available to provide some one-on-one if necessary. We will also have our incoming ninth graders who are participating in our summer bridge program on campus a couple of days a week, not only to extend the instruction that they're receiving online, but also to help them start getting acclimated to the campus. But those students who are coming on campus will be required to go through the check-in process that we shared this morning or this evening. The time just runs into each other.
Okay, that's great. A second question is, so just to clarify, make sure I understood correctly. So I have a student that'll be taking English this summer and a student that'll be taking PE this summer. Those will be online. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, beautiful. Sweet. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Ms. Liliana Mendez.
Hi, good evening all. I have two questions. So basically my child is an IB and AP student. And I heard that your guys are not gonna give no more, this class is online. So the second question will be, are students who are not getting the vaccination, the COVID, are they going to be rejected or are still being acceptable?
All students will be permitted to come on campus, whether they are vaccinated or not. Getting the vaccine is a personal choice. And the position that the district is taking is that the vaccination is not a requirement for returning to school.
And if, like, the other question will be, if the student gets, let's say, a 2 or any other, sickness, let's say this way. Like, for instance, we suffer allergies every season. How are you guys going to be able to identify if the student has COVID or if it is a seasonal allergies, and if they have to be, excluded from the group in the meantime that you find out which is the reality of that, reaction or behavior, then if the student is being asked to pull out of, classroom or campus for a couple of days, for the IB and AP students, are those teachers are going to be able to have the equipment or paperwork or something being ready for students not to fall behind, since those classes are very, accelerate in terms of teaching or tutoring? Are school going to be providing that, kind of like support?
So yes, I heard a couple of questions. We will just know that our staff is very mindful of the supports that might be needed for all students. And they are prepared to provide the supports that are needed for our students. If a student does experience some form of illness, whether it's COVID related or allergies, the common cold, the accommodations will be made to support that student to ensure that they stay on track. As far as students who have allergies or are experiencing just symptoms of the common cold, we actually had this conversation just earlier today on what would be the best way to address it. And so we are working on options of how we can quote unquote screen between what might be a COVID related illness as well as allergies and a cold or some other ailment. So we haven't quite worked it out, but it is at the forefront of our mind to come up with a plan that our teachers will use and other staff members will use to ensure that we are not assigning COVID to students who are experiencing allergy outbreaks. And so please know that we are thinking about how we can address that situation should it come up.
A further question, the swab that you guys are going to be using, are those ones are going to be for saliva or are going to be for, nostrils? I'm very concerned about the nostrils because they hurt a lot.
Yes, and unfortunately, I don't have the exact answer for you. It goes along with a question that was asked earlier. We will reach out to our district to get a little more information in regards to the type of tests that will be utilized, as well as just the protocols that they will put in place, the technique that they will use, so that we can share with our families. But unfortunately, we don't have that exact information this evening.
Okay, thank you so much. And I want to take the chance to say to all of you guys are doing a wonderful job. I'm very, very happy with the teachers that my daughter have. She's been improving a lot. Thank you for the effort and for the quality that you guys are providing to us to keep it during this time. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll make sure to pass that along to our staff.
Thank you. Next, we have Sonia Banuelos.
Okay, hi. My question is regarding sophomores. So they haven't been on campus this whole year. So my question is basically, are they going to get support groups like you guys have in place right now for freshmen? Because technically they're incoming as well, and they're going to need support as well as a tour of the campus and orientation like we normally do when they're coming in for freshman year. And my second part of my question is just my concern about, are desks going to be white between one period and another period? Or how is that going to work? Is it going to be a different classroom when there's a next period, or they're just going to sit in everybody else's desk from the whole day that are not being wiped?
So let me say this, that our staff is equally concerned about maintaining healthy measures for not only themselves, but for our students. So we are only required to sanitize daily for classes. However, we are providing our staff members with I don't remember what it's called, but a germicide that's approved by our district, so that staff members can wipe down desks between classes. Because what you pointed out is correct, that each period there is a different group of students that will be occupying the room. And so we want to make sure that we do provide the materials and the items so that staff can maintain a safe learning environment. It's not required, but just the conversations that we had from staff, I don't imagine many of them not taking that option to wipe down desks before a new group comes in.
And with that said, is it okay to send your child to school with their own set of Lysol or Clorox wipes so they can wipe down their own desk before they sit down?
So you didn't hear me say this, and I hope my boss got off the line. Although this is recorded, right? That was smart. Yes, your child can, but I will say this: Lysol is not one of the approved. The aerosol Lysol cans are not an approved item, but if you have those wipes, absolutely.
Okay.
We will not prevent any students from taking their personal or taking, the sanitation in their own hands.
Okay. And the other part of my question about the incoming 10th graders, are they gonna?
Oh, yes. Yes, that is our plan, to provide a student orientation for any students who have never stepped foot on Cajon's campus, in particular, our incoming 9th graders and our soon-to-be 10th graders.
Now, is this orientation gonna be for parents too, or just for the kids? Because normally they're for parents as well.
So you are correct. Typically, we do have a parent orientation at the beginning of the year, generally at the same time as which we're having our student orientation. We'll have more dates for you. Just be on the lookout for sometime in July where we'll have an orientation.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Krista Wagner.
Ms. Wagner, if you want to unmute and ask your question. All right, if you want to go back to her. Next question, Ms. Sosa.
Yes. Next, Roxana Martinez.
Good evening, administration. My name is Roxana Martinez, and I will be an upcoming senior. I do have 3 main questions for you guys, if you guys are ready for them.
Go ahead, Roxana.
Okay, so my first concern is the maximum occupancy for each classroom. I know that we had capstones for our classrooms where it was 40 students per class when we were in normal instruction. So how's that going to work with COVID guidelines?
So the classroom capacity is 36 currently. Our desks have been spread to accommodate a full class. As we mentioned earlier, that the recommendation is that students are 3 feet apart. And so we are setting up our classrooms to meet that recommendation, although it is not a requirement. But the max for our classes are 36. And there are some classes where the max will be at 32 because of the nature of the course.
Ask your next question.
My second question is about students who get sent to the containment room. There are some students that are 18, and I know that if we got sick at school and you were 18, some of them could drive back home on their own. I know that you did mention that parents will still be contacted, but will those students still be required to be picked up by their parents, or will they be able to drive off campus on their own?
So that is something that we had not talked about, but just typically, I'd like to defer to a parent as to whether or not the parent is comfortable with their student driving themselves or the parent picking the student up. Especially if the student is not feeling well. We do not want to put the student in a position in which they're managing an illness as well as, managing a car. So students who are 18 and are showing signs of COVID, they will still go to the isolation area. We will notify the parent, and if the parent has given us permission to release that student and allow them to drive home, then that's something that we will discuss at that time. But it definitely will be something that we defer to the family, because our goal is to keep everyone safe.
Roxana, you had a third and final question?
Yes. So as an IB candidate, I do have to take theory of knowledge, or I have the privilege of taking theory of knowledge, which is a 0-period class. So my question is, will screening begin with students who arrive for 0 period, or will they only be going to that screening area before 1st period?
No, you have it correct, that students who are privileged enough to wake up that early and take theory of knowledge will also be privileged enough to go through the screening process.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Next, we have David Rodarte.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I have two questions. The first one is that my son got a school ID about 6 weeks ago, and I didn't examine it that well, but I don't remember seeing an area perforated on it for a lanyard. Is that ID still going to work for him?
So all students will be receiving a new ID card. We will be doing pictures during the month of July. And at that time, students will receive their ID card with the lanyard and the hole punch for them to wear.
Okay, second question is, my son wants to drive to school in his new car or his car. He's licensed. Does he have to get any kind of a permit or anything like that?
Yeah, there is a process, and that's done through Mr. Smith's office. The student will need to provide proof of insurance along with their driver's license, and there will also be a process for that for him to be able to drive to campus. And as mentioned earlier in the slide, but they will be permitted to park in the east lot. However, they will be entering through a separate gate.
Okay, and where does he see Mr. Smith at? Should he see him before school starts?
Mr. Smith, what do you?
So he can pick up an application prior to school starting. That's fine. And then we will expect the applications turned in at a specific time that we assign students. Like an
Okay,
appointment
where does he pick up the application, please?
in the vice principal office.
So I'm gonna step in real quick. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, but we are gonna do our best to maintain a paperless registration this year. And typically we will offer those applications for driving permits and parking permits through our registration process. So before you send your student to the office, be on the lookout, because we very well will have an online process in place so that we can minimize the paper that's collected and
Okay.
as well as the traffic in the office.
Oh, thank you. So that would come to us through an email?
Yes.
Similar to the ones we got about today's meeting, correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Natalie Parentu.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having this meeting. Are students allowed to bring their personal laptops, or is it only the Chromebooks that they can bring on campus?
No, they'll be allowed to use a personal laptop as well, or the Chromebook, whatever's more convenient for the student.
Super. That's all I want. Thanks for your time.
Next, we have Israel Orozco.
Hi, my first question is, will virtual online classes have the same pathways as Cajon High School does, or will it all be different?
So we cannot speak to what pathways will be offered, if any, by the Virtual Academy, because they are a separate school. So to determine, for you to find out exactly what pathways and what programs are being offered at the Virtual Academy, you would need to contact them directly. We did put the link in the chat. So if I can have someone repost that in the chat so that you could get that information and contact them directly.
Okay, and my second question is, will the students be able to switch through years from Cajon to virtual class, or are you just staying with one for the rest of your Cajon student high school?
I'm sorry, can you restate your question?
Will you be able to switch from Cajon to virtual class?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you contact the Virtual Academy, they will provide you with the information on how to transfer to the Virtual Academy.
Okay, that is all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Margaret Soto.
Yes, hi. I was wondering, you guys mentioned earlier about there will not be any virtual at all in the fall, but however, we did get a email saying we had a choice, an option, either going 100% or like the hybrid or all the way virtual. Is that no longer an option? Do we no longer have a choice, or?
Yeah, so I know initially our district sent a survey out, I believe it was in November, sent a survey out to families asking about a virtual, an in-person virtual or hybrid option. That was when the district was looking at the option of bringing students back during this school year. And that was allowable because the legislation, I believe it's SB 98, allowed for that. But at this moment, comprehensive high schools will not be able to offer a hybrid model, nor can they offer a virtual model, because the legislation that permitted it will expire at the end of June. So that is why families who are contemplating sending their students to virtual academy have to understand that it is a transfer of schools.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Jenny Sanders.
Yes, so my question has to do with the summer school for the incoming ninth graders. How do we get information about that? Because I know my upcoming senior, he's already got his classes for the summer, but I haven't heard anything for my incoming ninth grader.
So we apologize for that. We're sending out information this week. There's been a delay because we've had to wait for our students who are going to be attending Cajon High School on a permit to roll over into our system. And so to not confuse families and send multiple communication out, we have waited for that rollover to take place. That took place last week. So you should start receiving information in regards to the bridge program this week.
And how is that information going to be sent out? Is it email? Is it phone calls? Is it letters?
It may be a combination of all three to make sure that you get it. So
okay, and when should we get this information by? And if we don't get it, who do we need to contact?
So my hopes would be that you would get it by Friday. If not, what I would ask that you do, and I'm going to ask, for some reason, I can't type in the chat at this moment, but if someone can type the email address for Leo Rodriguez, our counselor who is over summer school, he can provide you with the information as well.
Can type that in there.
Thank you, Ms. Sosa. And once again, we apologize. We just wanted to make sure that we had everyone in the system so that we can start communicating.
Okay, now is that going to be for every single incoming freshman or only certain number of freshmen? How is that going to work?
So any freshman that opted to come to summer school has the ability to do so. So we are not.
I'm sorry, how do we know if our child opted for that? Because I'm the one that signed him up. There's been no communication to him at all. Since we're coming from outside of the school district, we're not included in a lot of that information.
Okay. So I once again, I apologize. And when I say your student opted in, I'm referring to just the families. It could be you who signed him up or he signed himself up. So I apologize if that was unclear. So if a student family or the student themselves signed up for summer school, they will begin to receive information. What I am going to ask is that I get your information. If you can do a direct message to me in the chat, I will take your information down and make sure that Mr. Rodriguez reaches out to you to give you the information that's needed.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Patricia and X Cortez.
Good evening, and thank you for hosting this meeting. And also thank you for your patience with all of our questions. I have two questions. The first one is, my son will be a senior in the upcoming year, and he will have 2 initial home periods. Will the entry be the main entrance off of Hill Drive? That's my first question.
Yes, he'll be screened through the library. That's correct.
Okay, very good. And the second question is, I'm sure that you have anticipated that there will be students who very likely will remove their masks in classes, et cetera. What kind of provisions is administration making in the event that a student does remove, or students remove their masks and do not want to put them on for the safety of students?
So you just gave me nightmares even thinking about that. So, and we have discussed this and anticipated how we will respond. So, you know, we will absolutely ask that our staff starts the process in encouraging students to wear their mask because it is a requirement. Any student that does not want to comply there will be some administrative intervention in which we will remove that student from the class to have that discussion in regards to the importance of wearing the mask. We hate for someone not to go to school because of a mask, but we also take health very serious. And so if a student absolutely refuses, that's where, as I said, the administration of intervention will take place. We will also be contacting the families to determine what the next steps will be.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Rebecca Roop.
Hi, so I was wondering if you guys will have another Chromebook distribution soon?
Yes, we will be more than happy to get out more Chromebooks as soon as it's possible, sometime in the summer. If you need something sooner, please check the website, and there's a link you can go to request a Chromebook sooner.
Okay, and then my other question is, will you guys have any like tutoring on campus, or will it be all online?
Are you referring to summer or are you
no, I mean during school.
So more than likely we will have both options. So for students who need that in-person support, following the guidelines that we have, we will set up an appropriate space for that. And then for those students who would prefer to get the online support, we will also have that.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Jonathan Vargas.
Hello, my first question was how will lunch and breakfast be distributed?
Okay, so as we discussed in the slides, basically there will be a quick grab and go lunch distribution. Your identification number is no longer needed at this time, so you won't need to be punching in or scanning your card. It'll just be a quick check off. And again, it's a grab and go, so it will be a pre-packaged meal that's going to be distributed. And that again is for efficiency and minimizing the amount of students that are in contact with each other for extended periods of time.
Okay. And my second question, it's about the Bridge Summer Program. So what is the Bridge Program entitled to?
Sorry, our Bridge program is designed for our 9th grade students. It's to help support their academic needs. We will be reinforcing some of our standards, hopefully in a fun way. That's the plan. As well as just getting them acclimated to high school campus, giving them an opportunity to engage on the campus before school starts is also one of our goals.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Keisha McGee.
Hi, everyone. I have 2 questions. My first question is the kids that are are the parents agreeing to swab them with their information go into a state database? And what information would be given in that if there is a database?
Ooh, those are great questions, and unfortunately, I do not have information on how that will be handled. So along with the questions that came forward earlier in regards to COVID tests being administered, it's clear that we need to get some more information, and once we do, we will put that out to families, so families are fully aware of what the process will be and where that information goes. I would like to say that it will not go in a database, but I don't want to misspeak on anything.
Okay, and then my second question is, I don't know if you guys know too much about immune deficiency diseases, but like diseases like lupus, people carry higher temperatures. So are you guys just gauging the isolation room or where you're sending the kids? If their temperatures are high just on temperatures, or are you looking at other issues, other symptoms?
So our COVID liaison will be screening, looking at other, other variables outside of temperature. The temperature is just that first line of alert, if that's an appropriate way of putting it. So if a student does show signs of having an elevated temperature, then the COVID liaison will be able to put them through a series of questions to determine if it's something to be concerned with in regards to COVID.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If it's okay, we do see that there's still 21 hands, but we have a lot of questions in the chat. So it's okay if I can start alternating just to, I don't want to leave anyone out. So we'll start with Cynthia Dorton Dixon asked, can the Chromebooks be charged with an external battery?
So unfortunately, those are integrated batteries with the Chromebooks, so they're not able to be removed and replaced with a new battery to make them charge. So we'll have to have charging stations both in the class and in our Chromebook storage area so that we can ensure kids keep their Chromebooks charged.
Okay. Next, we have Verbena Sanchez. If you can please unmute and ask your question.
Okay, I'm gonna talk for my mom because my mom's like not here. But my first question is, because one of my teachers told me that we're gonna have 4 teachers a quarter. Is that true? Like, or for like 4 teachers per like certain time frame?
So at this moment, and I shared this earlier, we will be using the pre-COVID bell schedule where school starts at 7:30 and ends at 2:35, and we will have 7 periods a day.
Okay, and my next question is, this isn't related to COVID, but it's related to something that happened during the school year. So obviously my last name is Sanchez. So my counselor actually retired. So what's the issue with that? Is Miss Whited going to be the permanent counselor, or are we going to get a new one?
Well, depending on the breakdown, we are hiring a new counselor. So I cannot guarantee that Ms. Whited will remain your counselor. You very well may have a new counselor when you return in the beginning of the school year.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Thank you. The next 2 questions that were in the chat, I believe we already answered. If students come in late, they will go through the front office, and screening will begin at the to receive those students in 0 period. So let me look at the next question. Face mask guidelines. Will this reflect the current guidelines as they change? If California does not require them down the road, will the students still be required to wear them? And that's a question asked by Casey Price.
We will continue to follow the guidelines that have been given to us by our district, and their guidelines are based on the CDPH as well as CDC. So at this moment, I will say that you are wearing, we are requiring students to wear face masks. However, if the guidelines change based on what the CDPH says, as well as CDC, and our then our district will make that, will make the announcement as to how all schools will move forward with face masks.
Okay, next we have Amanda Carreño. Please unmute and ask your question.
Yes, so I know you guys mentioned the online registration is gonna be pretty soon. So my student is an incomer coming from Chavez. So would I get that information from Chavez?
No, any information regarding Cajon comes from Cajon. So you'll start to get the information in regards to registration from Cajon. We are utilizing an online registration process that goes through the parent portal. So if you do not currently have a parent portal account, I would encourage you to work with Chavez on establishing one. However, if you're unable to do that, when you do officially transfer over to Cajon, we'll help you with that as well.
Okay, he currently had, well, I currently have a parent portal. So would that be this summer that I need to be looking out for it?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. Look for sometime in July for the portal to open so you can do your open registration for Cajon High School.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
On the next two questions, again in the chat, I believe we're already asked, will sanitation be done after each group or class? We said that sanitation will occur at the end of the day. However, teachers are more than welcome to sanitize after each period, and students can also are welcome to bring their own supplies if they choose to, but it is not required. Next question was, what about 10th graders? They are new to high school as well, since this year has with COVID, any support programs for them. So we can look at with our wellness team in having a 10th graders support group like we have in 9th grade. So that's something we could definitely explore for next year. So then moving on to our raised hands, Patricia Deason, if you can unmute and ask your question.
I have two questions. The first question is in regard to busing. We do not live within the parameters of getting automatic busing. You have to qualify or apply for, I guess, for to be added to the busing system if there's room. And with this COVID, is there going to be? I'm sure they're going to be spaced or social distancing on the bus as well. Will there be more buses offered to allow that? There will be open availability for students who have to apply for that. Additional to be added onto the busing?
You're referring to the open seat policy?
Yes.
Yeah. The only suggestion I can make to you, ma'am, is to reach out to Marie Espinoza in transportation to determine how they're addressing the open seat policy. We currently don't have information on that. We'll be more than happy to reach out as well, because that would be good information for us to have. But if you want an immediate answer, I would suggest you reach out to Marie.
Okay, Marie Espinoza. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Finley, if you can post that in the chat once more so that she'll have the contact information, it'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And my second question is that the CDC guidelines now allow that no masks need to be worn outside while they're socially distancing or just being outside. My question is, if students will they be allowed to go without a mask while they're outside and socially distancing to get some fresh air in between classes?
So currently we have been asked as a site to require students to wear their mask, although CDC has put forth that guideline. The California Department of Public Health has not. And so our district has requested that all sites require students to still wear those masks until something changes with CDPH.
Okay, and then in regards to the June 15th mask guidelines being open as well, if that does occur, then will the CDPH, I guess, make alterations to their guidelines?
I'm pretty sure that there will be some changes after June 15th, but until then, we can only guess.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. That's it for my questions.
you. In the chat, Devonna Robertson asks, are we still having late start? I can go ahead and take that. At this time, as Ms. Bishop had mentioned in the opening of our meeting, we are still planning to begin at 7:25 and end at 2:35 for our standard period 1 through 7 students. The following year, we know that there's a state legislation bill that was signed for late start. So at that time, we will make those appropriate changes. But at this time, we are still planning to begin school at the same time. Next, we have Ariana Galvez. Can you please unmute and ask your question?
Okay, I have two questions. The first one being, so let's say I guess it would be the worst case scenario if I was to get COVID and get sent home and for the 7 days, and I want to contact my teachers for homework, and if I have any additional questions, would there be office hours available for them to, like, if there was an email or just to like hop on a Google Meet for a question or something?
That's a very good question. And so each individual teacher may opt to have an office hours set up for their students. However, it is not something that has been discussed school-wide. So you are always welcome to reach out to your teacher via email, but I cannot assure you that that teacher will have established an office hour in which you can meet with them virtually. I can't imagine, well, there very well may be several teachers that will opt to do that, but for right now, the email will be the best way to contact your teacher if you should become ill.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, I think you already might have answered this, but let's say I was to have an allergic reaction and break out in hives, and I can't make it to the nurse's office quickly. How would that work out?
So you said if you broke out in hives?
Or in like an alert, if I was to have an allergic reaction. Yeah.
So we do understand that COVID is not the only ailment that students will experience. And so if you broke out in hives, we still have a school nurse as well as a health aide on site that can help support with that. We don't want to assume that everything is COVID. And so please know that if you broke out in hives or have some type of allergic reaction, we do have our school nurse as well as our health aide available to support you and determine what the appropriate next steps would be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question in the chat by Cassie. Do we have to buy our IDs? No, they will be provided to students for free. Next, we have Rosana Delgado. If you can please unmute and ask your question.
I do have a question. If my son does not want to get swabbed, how many days can he be absent? The 7 days or the 3 days?
So if your student is experiencing COVID-related symptoms, we are asking that the student remain home for 7 days. So until those symptoms are no longer present, and then they may return. And if that should be the case, we will contact the teachers and let them know that the student is out for those days, and they will provide homework and so that the student can stay on track.
Okay, then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a question in the chat.
Before we transition, we do want to answer everybody's questions, but we did have this forum set up till 8, but we'll stay here as long as we need to.
Okay, the next question is, would students be able to bring their, it's already been answered, but in case someone came in late, would students be able to bring their own personal laptops instead of school issued Chromebooks? The answer is yes. If we can please have, is it Rosana? Did we already have Rosana Delgado and ask a question? Yeah, so we can move to Manuel G.
Hi, yeah, I wanted to know because the guidelines are changing in June. Is the summer athletics program going to be on campus at all?
Well, I can speak to that. Well, as many of you may or may not know, athletics has been in session for the last several months. As of right now, we do have permissions to have our practices for our sports, and some of those fall sports will be taking place in the summer for tryouts and whatnot. So the answer to that question is yes, those sports that are for the fall and will be doing tryouts in the summer will be available at this time.
Okay, also, and the information that's going to be sent out for the summer bridge program, is that only for students that have opted in? I don't recall getting that information, but just to clarify, did I need to opt into something to get that information, or is it just going to be information sent out to everyone?
There were flyers and announcements sent out to families, allowing them to sign up for the summer bridge program. We also spoke with our feeder middle schools and let them know what's going on. So several of them also spoke to students, and we assumed to families about Cajon having a summer bridge program. If you're still interested, if you didn't receive the information and you're interested, please reach out to our counselor, Mr. Leonel Rodriguez, and he can provide you with some information in regards to summer bridge.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
You're welcome.
The next question in the chat is a two-part question. Will it be pre-packed lunches? If so, can you please explain?
Yes, it's as far as we know, they are pre-packaged lunch. I'm not really sure what the actual items are. However, the conversations I've had with nutrition services is they're going to try and diversify the meals as much as possible with the food that they have available, and those items that also will retain their quality with being packaged. There's no hot open-faced meals at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Jancy. The next question is, bring their Chromebook to and from home every day. That will be heavy on their backpack, causing shoulder injury.
Yeah, that currently is the plan, that the students will be responsible to bring it each day, charge it up when they get home, make sure it's fully charged and ready to work the following day. Unfortunately, we don't have any other option of storing them on campus when we have 3,000 students.
However, as well, if we need to establish a 504 plan to have one here on site to accommodate students, we can do that as well.
Okay, next we have Cristina Nunez Lopez. You can please unmic and ask your question.
So my question is, when would next year school we be starting at?
If I understood, next year school starts on August 2nd, and the day will, well, class starts at 7:30 a.m.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, question in the chat by Vimian Sedmeño. For summer school, P, will it be virtual?
That is the current plan, yes.
Okay. Teresa Gutierrez, can you please unmute and ask your question?
So say if we do virtual school, would the next year after that, would we be able to go back to Cajon?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question in the chat, I believe, has already been answered. What if your child's vaccinated? Do they still need to wear a mask, and why?
Ms. Sosa, it is 8 o'clock, and so if you guys wish to excuse yourself, you may. If not, we'll continue to ask questions, answer questions.
So the answer to that is yes, students will still need to wear a mask unless they have gone through the exemption process. If they have a health condition or any other particular reason to not warrant wearing a mask, and we will be able to identify those students on their IDs as well. So at this time, even though a student is vaccinated, a mask will still be required for students and staff. Okay, next we have Robert Cuencas. If you could unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, two questions. Just to clarify again, let's say my student starts in person in August, they want to switch to Academy in October, November, and vice versa. Can you switch throughout the year?
So my understanding is, yes, there will be times in which the student can transfer. So if your student starts at Cajon in August, we definitely don't, and you make the decision to have him or her switch to the virtual academy, that can happen. We want to make sure that we're not disrupting their instruction. So I know that we are trying our hardest to make sure that if there are any transfers to and from virtual academy, that it is at a natural break. So we are not disrupting this instruction and creating a concern about grading. So
okay, so vice versa, if they're in the academy,
yes,
they can go back to Cajon anytime. Okay,
absolutely.
And second, Monday,
provided that there's space, and I have to say that, provided that there is space.
perfect. And Monday, will there be late start on Mondays?
You know, we believe that we are continuing with our late start Mondays, but there have been talks that it could be on a different day. But for right now, it's late start Mondays.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, my chat kind of got away from me. I'm trying to find where it last left off. Sorry. How was Link Crew going to work? So at this time, we do have plans to have Link Crew support with the orientation with our 9th grade group and our 10th grade group. As far as how we conduct the class, it'll still be as normal, but we may have to make some accommodations during the time of the year where students would not typically provide lessons to our 9th grade classes. And so again, that'll be a work in progress, but we will have Link Crew supporting our freshmen as we have in the past. It's just getting a little bit creative of how that support will pan out. Next, we have Krista Wagner. I believe you were having some mic issues. I'm sorry, could not find, I don't know if you typed your question in the chat, I could not find it. So hoping you can either unmute or maybe type your question in the chat.
Ms. Sosa, this is Ms. Finley. I have her question. Her
Okay,
question
thank you.
is, what factors will Cajon use to determine when to fully open?
I'm sorry, can you restate that?
What factors will Cajon use to determine when to fully open?
So I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but as it stands, Cajon is fully opening in August. So it's 5 days a week for full days. Students will have 7 classes a day. So we are fully opening. However, we are putting precautions in place to maintain the health and safety of our students as well as our staff. So when we have students wearing masks and we are, maintaining social distance where it's appropriate, having the one-way paths of travel, those will be put in place so that we are maintaining the health and safety of students. But as far as school itself, it is opening full-time August 2nd, 5 days a week, full days, starting at 7:30 a.m., ending at 2:35. I hope I answered that question. If it's something that I missed, please let me know so that I can clarify.
Ms. Wagner followed up and said that she means a normal opening, no masks or social distancing. And then she also wanted clarification on the late start Mondays.
Okay, so no masks and no social distancing. It all depends on what the guidelines have been, what the guidelines are saying. As I stated before, our district sets its guidelines based on both the California Department of Public Health as well as the CDC. We know that there are some guidelines that are conflicting, but the main entity that our district is basing its guidelines on are the California Department of Public Health. If the California Department of Public Health changes its guidelines, then that very well will mean that we will be changing our guidelines as well.
Okay, we have a question in the chat. Julie Centennial, I believe it's already been asked. So for lunch, will kids be assigned where they will eat or how lunch will work? So Mr. Jancy had shared that we will, try to be careful to make sure that kids are not in large groups, no more than 4 students at a time. There will be different distribution, lunch distribution and breakfast distribution locations, like different additional cards. We will have our normal windows for distributing the meals. So I hope that answers that question. Next, we have Michael Santos. We can please unmute and ask your question.
Yes, good evening. I have 2 incoming rising freshmen. One of them is in district and one of them is coming out of district. So for the one that's out of district, when will I be receiving, I did register him. When will I be receiving his ID in order to be able to add him to Aries and all his registration information? If I understand your question correctly, so you've already enrolled him, you should be receiving an identification number for that already. So then we have the information on him being registered at Cajon High School, if that's what you're thinking of. Yeah, so that's what I meant. I meant to say identification number, not just ID. So when do I get that identification number in order to be able to, because you guys said we'll be able to register them through Aries, so.
Yes, well, the portal is going to open in July, but once you enroll and you're in the system, you should receive that registration number. I'm going to put a number in the chat if you need some more information on that to get if you do not see that number right now. Okay.
Okay, next we have a question in the chat by Nancy Ortega. Will security still be on campus at the entrance and exit areas?
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, we're going to have security deployed at the most strategic areas possible so we can ensure they're monitoring all students for safety. So they'll be in various places on campus so that we can ensure students get to and from class safely and get on campus and off campus safely.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next, we have Rebecca Caldera. If you can unmute and ask your question, please.
Hi, yes. I have a question about the masks. I know you guys said that they have to wear them, and I understand that. But what if the student has anxiety wearing it for so long? Because I know I do, like sometimes I can't even breathe. I have to take it off when I go outside, but you guys aren't even going to allow them to take it off outside. So are you guys going to have like a spot for them to be able to take it off for a couple seconds if they have anxiety?
I'm not sure that we will have a designated spot, but we absolutely want students to, their overall well-being to be, be well, right? So if your student does have some anxiety, we would ask that the student has a conversation with a staff member and seeing about getting a pass out of class so that they have an opportunity to remove their mask. We're not here to jump on a student if for 30 or so seconds they have to remove their mask in an open area where there's very few students around. Like I think most adults here would need that as well. So we have not necessarily worked out a full protocol, but your student absolutely can have a conversation with a staff member about them feeling anxious, and we can make accommodations.
Okay, so if my child, so let's say she can go up to the teacher and says, I have anxiety a lot with this mask. If I step out really fast when in the middle of class, would that be okay? Or is it per teacher?
It will be up to the individual teacher. However, it is a conversation that we will have with our entire staff as we work through the scenarios that may come our way. As I said, we don't want to penalize students for having, you know, anxiety or any other thing that we may come across. So that is a scenario that we will have to work out and we'll talk to our staff about. But it will be up to the individual teacher. I would also encourage your student to let the teachers know at the start of the school year that that is something that happens. If your student doesn't feel comfortable talking to the talking to the teacher directly, then you as a parent, I would also encourage you sending an email and letting them know so that that teacher will make the appropriate accommodations. Our staff is very sensitive to the needs of our students, so I don't see how it would be a problem as long as they are well aware of what their what the need is that they're addressing.
Okay, thank you. And I have two other questions. My other one is about the isolation room. Okay, so I'm concerned, like, let's say my child just is getting sick or the common cold or something, and then you guys send them to the isolation room and then they end up getting COVID on top of the flu or something because they're in that room. How is the layout of that room going to be? Because that's more worries me because, you know.
So we're working on the layout. It is a full classroom, one of the larger classrooms that we're using. And so students will be distanced from one another. What we have not worked out is if there's a screening before students enter the room, or if the screening will take place inside of the room. There are some details that absolutely have to be worked out, but please know that we do not want to put your student or anyone else's student in jeopardy of catching COVID because of a structure or some system we put in place. So we are definitely taking the time and attention to set the room up where we don't have passage between students that are in there. So using a plexiglass, spacing out the chairs, all of those things will be put in place. But as I said, I can't give you too many details because they are still being worked out.
Okay. And then my last question is, I know you said that there's going to be arrows going one way, you know, like you can only walk one way, but what about this? Do you guys have like a sanitation area? Because, you know, a lot of people can't really, you know, afford the hand sanitizer for, let's say, 5 kids or, you know, how many? Are you guys going to have different areas throughout the campus?
Oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I said,
Okay,
they're in every classroom. They're in all the buildings, so there's plenty of them around.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
We have a question in the chat. We may have missed it at the beginning, but what is the expected classroom size? It was shared earlier. Most of the classrooms are at capacity of 36. However, given the nature of the class, there may be some that are at 32 and PE classes that are up to 50. So it just depends, but the majority of the classes are at 36. Next, we have Patricia Murillo, if you can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for holding this meeting and the open forum for us to ask questions. I wanted to confirm, I read an article where they were having vaccine sites at schools. So it's a 2-part question. One is Cajon being one of them, and 2, I would assume the vaccine would not be administered unless it's parental consent.
That is absolutely correct. We will not administer any vaccines without a parent consent. Now, we are not a designated vaccine site. We have other schools within our district that are. However, we have been asked to host a pop-up vaccination clinic, I guess you can say, on May 26th. That's this Wednesday. It'll be, and Mr. Jancy, you can share the time on that, but in general, we are not a designated site, but there will be a pop-up vaccination clinic this Wednesday at Cajon High School.
Thank you. I have 2 more questions. Sorry, thank you for your time. Regarding the isolation room, if the the student doesn't receive or the school doesn't receive parental consent for the testing, will, parents still be notified of potential exposure, since the school at that moment didn't get, a test done and say, yes, this specific student did have or tested positive for COVID? Will we still be contacted for possible COVID contact?
Are you referring to students who are in the classroom in which the student came from, or the student who is suspected of maybe having some COVID symptoms?
No, for example, the students that may have been in contact with that person that tested positive. So my concern is if the student doesn't receive or the school doesn't receive the parental consent for testing on site, but let's say my child was in contact with that student, will we still be notified of potential exposure?
So that's a tricky question. It's definitely a tricky question. So typically we would not notify because we don't want to alert people and have them, getting anxious if there's no need for it. So I honestly, let me just say, I want to make sure that we maintain just the integrity of the process. So more than likely, your student will not be notified and parents will not be notified unless we have confirmation that that student has tested positive for COVID. So that's the conversation we will need to have with the student who was suspected of having COVID on what's the responsibility of the student and that family if they're opting out of a rapid COVID test on site, which very well may be the case. And we are expecting that, but there is going to be a responsibility on their side to provide us with some confirmation so that we can maintain the health and safety of the other students. So yeah, I know that might not be the answer you want, but just we need to maintain the integrity of the process.
Got it. Yeah, that keeps. I know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I hope the families are, honest. So if they do contact the school though afterwards and say, you know what, my child was positive, then
absolutely,
then that's when we would be okay.
Absolutely. So once it's confirmed, yes. Okay, I'm ready.
Sorry, last question. My child is an introvert in middle school. Like his safe area was like the library. So will the library be open to students, and is it like limited capacity as well, or will it not be? Just so I can prepare him if that's a choice. I'm hoping he'll be a little bit more social, but.
Yeah, let me take this one, Ms. Give you a little break. I oversee the library services on the campus. And so at this time, the district has determined that large rooms such as our library and our cafeteria will not be allowed to have students in there. And so at this point in time, the library will be closed until we get further direction.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for the time and the awesome job the teachers are doing. Thank you.
Ms. Sosa, I see that we have maybe 4 more hands up. We're going to take those. And then I don't know if there are any more in the chat, but it is 8:19. And so we want to honor the time of those who are on the line. But we want to go ahead and wrap it up. So we'll take those questions of families and students whose hands are up, as well as those last chat questions. If we are unable to get to anyone else's questions, please feel free to email us, and we will attempt to get you your answers immediately.
Okay, if we can have Sonia Manolos unmute and ask your question.
I think Sonia asked a question earlier.
Okay. Next, we have Viviana Rosas. We can unmute and ask your question.
I'm actually here. It's possible to have another quick question.
Yeah, she can go. She can go.
I'm sorry. My question is regarding the graduates for 2020. Are they going to have a ceremony afterwards? I did receive a Google sheet to fill out, but I haven't heard anything back.
Yeah.
For like a month already since I filled it out.
Our district did make a commitment to the class of 2020 to have a ceremony for those who desire to participate in one. That is something that is being addressed by the district. So any questions in regards to dates and details in regards to the ceremony will be something that will have to be directed to our district office, as they are the ones that are making plans for that ceremony for the class of 2020.
Do you know which department that would be?
You know, one department I would tell you to start with is maybe communications.
Okay.
And I don't have that number, but if someone, one of my,
that's okay. I can figure that out.
okay, thank you.
Quick question. I think I missed it, so I just want to make sure I know. Will the students be required to wear their masks during PE, like when they're running or doing physical activity?
So I think that we're using the same guidelines as we would for our sports. And I don't know that we require the mask for those outdoor sports, but Mr. Jancy, would you speak a little more to that?
So, yes, as of right now, the physical activities that are exerting energies, we do not have that in our sports activities at this time where they are required to wear a mask. We would still need them socially distanced, you know, if they're running laps and whatnot. So we're okay with that.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry for the delay. I was taking out the trash.
No worries.
Good to hear your voice, Ms. Manuelis.
Okay, next, Ms. Viviana Rosa, if you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Are you guys like providing like any like standardized testing like for college entrance, like so SAT or ACT and then AP exams? I don't know if you guys have hosted those previously, but like we noticed like trying to sign up for those that like there is really no knowledge, like my brother didn't have any knowledge of like signing up for those exams, and like the closest ones were kind of like far away, like in Riverside and stuff. So I'm just wondering if you guys are hosting those exams. Yeah, that was my question. And then I have a few other after that.
Okay, are you referring to this school year or moving forward?
So this upcoming school year, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ms. Sosa, you want to speak to that?
Yes, so we'll revert back to our in-person practices. So we did host SAT on our campus as well as AP testing. ACT is not run through our staff. However, students can go online and find a location where ACT is administered.
And Ms. Sosa, we are an ACT site. We partner with Cal State San Bernardino. One of the Mr. Figs has been our contact person who works with ACT. And so we have been an ACT testing site in the past.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop.
Awesome.
And your next question?
Yeah. I think you mentioned this. I'm not sure if you might have misspoke with Ms. Bishop, but you mentioned that like if someone was like attending like virtual school and then they came back, like they could come back provided that there's room. Is there going to be like a question of like, is there enough room for students to like learn in person?
So there's always a question if there's space at Cajon High School, because we recognize we are awesome. So what we find is that we sometimes get impacted at certain grade levels throughout the year. And so if a student is returning from virtual academy, if we don't have space at a certain grade level, there is the potential, and I'm not going to say it's a definite, but there is a potential that we would not have the space to allow them to return at that moment.
Okay. If they're already doing school in person, there's no like what if like they're gonna have to be forced to go online or anything, right? Okay.
No.
Just making sure. And then this might be a really difficult question to ask, and I don't mean to poke any like bears or anything, but like, is there like a reason why like the school isn't requiring vaccinations for students that are of eligible age? This question might have been asked, but I know that like Cal States and UCs are planning to require vaccinations for students. So I'm just wondering if like you guys foresee that happening in the future, or if like, I don't know, there's circumstances where like that ruling can change or something.
So what we know is that anything is possible. I think this year has taught us that anything is possible. But we know at this time that vaccinations are a personal choice. There is no legal requirement that citizens have to get the vaccination. And because of that, our district has taken the position that we will not require students or staff to get vaccinated prior to coming to campus. We are a public entity, and so we have to, be mindful of that. Some of our schools are more private, right? And so they have a little more leeway to require vaccinations or whatnot. But at this time, our district is not requiring the vaccination because there's no legal requirement for students, staff, or anyone else to have the vaccination.
Gotcha. So that really like kind of depends on the state, right? Like if the state passes a law. Okay.
Absolutely.
Next, we have Patricia Sotelo. If you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. I just had a quick question on the lunch, and I do apologize if it was answered because I did put it on the chat, but I had to step away real quick. My kid's picky, and so can he bring his own lunch? That's acceptable. We're good with that.
Absolutely, they can bring their own lunch.
Okay, awesome. And then just to clarify, I work at CSU San Bernardino, so vaccinations are not going to be required at Cal State San Bernardino until they're FDA approved. So, it's still voluntary for us at this time. And then one last thing, I know you said the presentation is being recorded and it's on YouTube, but would the maps that were provided in the presentation by chance be able to be placed on Cajon's website so we could just, you don't necessarily need the whole presentation, but then at least the kids could pull them, or we can pull them down for the kids and tell them, here you go, follow the arrows?
That's a great idea. We absolutely can do that for you.
Thank you. And that was it for me.
But we will ask that if your son is bringing his own food, that, there are 5 administrators on campus that are always hungry. So just think of us.
So it's always peanut butter sandwich. So there's no variety. Just the heads up.
Okay. Well,
I like PB&J.
Yeah.
Lastly, we have Kelly Guillory. If you can unmute and ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just had a quick question about the AP exams. I have an incoming freshman and she's been recommended for AP classes. Is there a test that she needs to take before going into those classes?
So we don't offer AP at Cajon High School. We are an IB school. And so we encourage all students who would like to participate in our IB program. They can start by enrolling in our MYP, our middle years program classes. There's no application necessary. It's just a matter of your student expressing an interest, or the parent expressing an interest to the counselors to ensure that they are registered for their classes. Once the student reaches the 11th grade year, they will be recommended for our DP or diploma program, which is also part of the IB program. But there's no application process.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to tell Ms. Sosa, thank you for helping out with my oldest daughter. She knows who she is. Thank you, guys have been awesome.
Oh, it was a pleasure, and it was great seeing her at our cap and gown distribution.
Oh, she's excited. We're excited as well. But thank you guys and have a great evening.
You too.
You as well. Thank you. So that is it for our raised hands. We do have quite a bit of messages. I don't know if we want to answer those in a FAQ or.
Yeah, what we'll do at this time is we're going to capture the questions that are in the chat, and we will put out an FAQ to our families. It'll be on our website. If there's anyone that has specific questions that you absolutely need answers to, please feel free to reach out to us. You can email any of the 5 administrators, and we will get you that answer as soon as possible. But for now, you know, based on the time, it is 8:30. We are going to ask that at this point, we will conclude our meeting, and any questions that need to be answered, please email us and we will get that answer to you at our, not at our earliest convenience, immediately, ASAP. So thank you all for coming out. Hopefully we were able to answer your questions so that we have the pleasure and privilege of serving your students next year.